So you're doing a semi-presentation-ish thing about.
Yeah, yeah, it's a presentation of some sort. It's kind of a helping. So there are two presentations, one that I've already recorded and one that I'm finishing recording today. I recorded the intro this morning. Um, the one I'm recording now is all about unscripting neurodiversity, which is a nice, posh and fancy little markety term for using ecological principles to just be able to do the things you want to do.
Okay.
Skipping the entire brain doesn't work properly, I'm not good enough, etc., etc. That is fed throughout. So that's that presentation. And I'm using affordances because that's the easiest way in. And I'm testing something new. So instead of
Affordances are
teaching
the
them,
easiest way in. Interesting.
okay, perception is the easiest way in, but there's still layers of complicatedness to it. But yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued to see where this is going, but yeah, carry on.
And I'm going to try something different because usually I'm teaching, which I don't really enjoy. And really, let's be honest, the best way to experience it is to experience it. Like, go, hey, so instead of teaching you a thing, I'm going to show you a thing because that's the entire fucking point.
Yep.
So I've created a couple of mini practice designs of like in the presentation because it's recorded as well. So that would be kind of interesting to see. And
So
I'm
it's an
trying.
online summit.
Yeah, so online summit, not in person, no. And so I have a couple of like experiences that they can go through as they're going. So one of them is really simple task lists. One of them is like task lists. One of them is talking like not just the visual setup, but like their desk and how their desk interacts with things. And then there's the other one where what happens when it's a bad day and everything goes wrong? What happens then? What do we do? How do we move forward? Can we move forward or do we need to stop? What then? So there's kind of like three experiences. And then it's like, hey, you already know this shit. It's like, this isn't magical. This isn't special. This is what we do. This is how we exist in the world. This is how we operate. It's not magic,
Yep,
but it does work.
there's no secret.
It's no secret. It just works.
Okay.
And and here are all the reasons. So one of the things that I've done with the final experience is like going through the typical ADHD. Oh, well, I'm switching tasks all the time, and do all those tasks get done? Well, no, because I have to pull myself away to go and do the other task. Well, okay, then stop pulling yourself away and follow where you're going.
I, I guess I guess I'm intrigued to see if like what's the is the aim for it to be here's a problem, I'm going to solve a problem, or is it just going to be talk about lots of things at once? Like what's the intention of the presentation?
The intention is to give alternatives. That's the main, like, it's a, okay, so this is how we're taught to behave. What if there's an alternative? It's kind of like a welcome to a new world that is exactly the same as the one you had before.
No, the reason I ask is like with presentations, I find that a lot of people they assume where the audience is at. So I imagine you can it's probably a safe assumption many of them, if you say ecological dynamics or ecological psychology, will get lost. But
Yeah.
when it comes to application, they might not grasp the significant difference between what it is that you're
Mm.
doing and what it is that other people are doing. Like the all of the behind the scenes that we are talking about, they might not grasp because they are looking at the front facing, oh, I did this thing and it worked. Great, cool, done. That's because working memory, or that's because my brain did blah blah blah. Um, and so the exercises might not necessarily transfer into understanding or exploring ecological psychology slash dynamics because the the intention isn't to expose them to those things. It might be, I
Mm.
don't know. Because if the intention is to solve a problem using ecological dynamics, this is where me as the coach, I would create a practice design, but I don't need to tell the participant, why I created the practice design, why I shaped it this way, all the other different things that me as the coach are thinking about. I don't need to tell them because they're just solving the problem. So I guess to rephrase my original question, is the intention to work with the individuals as participants or work with the individuals as potential coaches that shape their own practice?
Probably potential coaches that shape their own practice, which, based on what you're saying, maybe I need to give a little bit more of the information behind what I've said, more of like
Yeah,
the
in sports
why.
coaching, it would be the difference between coaching and coach development.
Mm,
If you're going to develop coaches, they need to understand why you're creating the practice design that you are. When
mm,
you're coaching, it doesn't matter why the practice design is there, it's just there. And then they act depending on the intention that you've given them for the exercise. You kick ball over there, jump this way, throw that thing that way. Whereas coach development, you'd say, okay, why do I want them to throw it that way? Because that's the target. Okay, why is the target over there and not over there? Like, so those sorts of questions. So my my gut feeling, uh, if it's going to be more directed at coach development or helping the individuals understand the reasons behind the practice design, is probably to have one practice design and sort of pick it apart.
mm.
I feel like that would also get more questions and more engagement potentially.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because if you're picking apart practice design, whether it's your practice design or another practice design, or maybe you pick something that's common, like a common solution to a problem, you say, "Oh, have you seen this solution to this problem? Did it work for you? Yes. Did it work for you? No. Why didn't it work? How could you change it? What could we do? Why would I do this and not that? Why do I think this wouldn't work?" Rather than saying it won't work because of this, it's, well, this is encouraging you to do these things, and if you're not good at these things, then you probably won't find success doing this. And in order to explain why you wouldn't find success, you can say, well, if you're paying attention to these things over here, because this is your past experience, and this solution is asking you to do those things over there, you don't have much skill in doing that. So you're being asked to do something that you're not very skilled at to solve a problem that you're struggling with, which is going to increase the amount of energy that you're expending towards completing the problem, and you're wondering why you're not going to solve the solution. Like, yeah, um, that's how I would approach it. And similar with coach development, coach education, I try and pick a practice and sort of pick it apart. But you've got to be very careful how you pick it apart and what you pick apart because obviously people get emotionally attached to certain practice designs and traditional ways of coaching. So, yes,
Don't do that. Don't challenge my way of thinking. How could you?
precisely.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to try and put into a presentation.
But it would be very similar to the conversations we have.
Mm.
But instead of talking at me, you're talking at other individuals with less experience in ecological dynamics and psychology. And so the jargon, I would reduce the jargon, obviously, because shortcuts and shorthands are great if they know the shortcut. If they don't know the shortcut, it reduces the description, which isn't useful. Uh, but the rest of it, I would just pick an experience. Just pick a relatable experience that many of them may have had that will probably include some of the jargon that you can challenge like neurodiversity, and then go from there.
That'd be cool.
What are you thinking of right now?
Yeah, so I was thinking, so the easiest one is the task list one because that's always a thing. It's like, oh, just break it down. Yeah, but why? Why am I breaking it down? How am I breaking it down? When do I break it down? When do I not? What do I break down? That would be a really easy one to work from because it's such a common thing and there are so many variables that are just ignored.
I guess we could work it through. Like, how do you break down tasks?
Whatever I can action the quickest. So for me, it's whatever I can move forward with. If it's something that I can move forward or I already know the steps, that's all I need. So that sometimes means it's a massive task like migration X. because it's a process that I can follow and repeat and I don't need to think about it. But other times it's like when I'm stuck on something, I need to take it apart and go, here is the next thing to do. And then here's the next thing to do. And then here is the next thing to do. But often when I start doing one thing, I spiral into the rest of them because I just move forward. So it
So,
becomes less about like task lists of organizing what I do when I do it. And for me, it's more of a what's the first step to start the day or start the thing or do the thing? That's always how I frame my task lists is like, it's just a reminder, if you will, a prompt of what I'm doing, more than a list of things I've got to check off every day.
so my immediate thinking with that response is the meaning behind breakdown. It means something different to you than it does to me.
Mm,
Because for me, breaking down a task doesn't mean splitting the task up into smaller tasks. It could
mm.
mean that, and I recognize that most people would assume that, but for me, breaking down a task is looking at how much attention I need to pay.
Yeah.
So, what's the due date? Is there a due date? What's the
Mm.
importance level? Is there an importance level? Where does this task sit in prioritization with everything else? So I can break down the task in terms of my intention and attention towards completing it, rather than, oh, I need to break this one thing up into lots of other things. Because if you break
Yeah.
something up into lots of other things, you're now doing lots of other things, not that one thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I suppose in a way that's kind of what I do is like where do I need to direct where what I'm doing? It's very much
So
like
if you were to have the migration, would you split that up into multiple tasks?
no,
Okay. That's what I was thinking. I was like, if you split that up into multiple tasks, surely you're adding to the list, which,
no, no. If I have because all of that exists, I just follow it, and
right.
I have developed that skill of just doing the thing versus having to remember this and to do that and to break it all down into tiny weeny little pieces. Because breaking it down only helps to a certain degree. When I mean breaking it down, I kind of mean in a similar way to you. Like as I'm thinking about it, it's just what am I doing? What needs to be done? Why do I care? Should I care? If I don't care, then why am I going to do it?
And I think that, like, I've done this multiple times, hence, hence the experience. But that to me shows that uh, sort of it brings out education of attention and intention and the complexity with language all in
Yeah.
one. So you can then however you want to do it. But you can then say, okay, so I'm paying attention to all of this, and my intention is those things. But some of these intentions, there's no real point there. And because I imagine most people will do the same thing as you. If you ask, oh, how do you break up your task? You could ask it in the chat. They'd be like, oh yeah, I break my task down like this, or I don't break my task down at all. And you say, oh, you don't break them down at all. So do you look at the importance and due date? Well, yeah. Well, is that breaking the task down? Well, no. And you can have a conversation about what breaking a task down means. And that's where you can explore language because ecological psychology is a very particular language, as you're familiar with, for those reasons, because meanings are in people, not words. And so
Mm.
when you're breaking down the meaning of breaking a task up, or simplifying a task, or putting a deadline on a task, is a deadline solid or is it flexible? Is there due dates or due dates, bit of both? Like,
The doo-doo dates.
yeah, do due, do due dates, yeah, do due, yeah. I was like, don't say dojo, but it's doju. Dojo, doju, yeah,
Do, do, do.
doju.
No.
Didgeridoo. Uh, yeah, planned and due dates. But yeah, so with the language, I think it would be interesting to explore the language that they choose to use and how
Mm,
they view a task, just one task. Because
so cool.
because you could have a task that's written with more letters, i.e., longer task, that can be done in 5 minutes. Or you could have a task that's written with a couple of words that takes hours because it's the meanings of the words that are written are very, very broad. And so when you're breaking down the task, are you breaking down the meaning of the words of the task or one action?
Oh, that's cool.
And it's one exercise, but your coach developer, you're picking it apart. You're picking apart all the small intricacies that you potentially, as a coach, ideally you should have thought about when choosing the words, when choosing the behaviors, when choosing the practice. All of those small details impact how it is interpreted, perceived by the other individuals because of the affordances that they are attuning to. Hence, when you say break up, break down, the up or the down will change what they're thinking because of the affordances that they are perceiving from the meanings and the experiences they've had previously with those words,
Mm.
which we're just picking apart.
Also, just thinking break up and break down, like, oh, does that mean the task can be broken up into bigger chunks? And I'm like, well, yeah,
Because it can go the other way, but most people don't think about making a task bigger.
yeah,
They don't think about making a task bigger, but they will probably be familiar with goals. So why work from the goal down to the task? Why not work from the task up to the goal? It's an affordance many people wouldn't have attuned to because it's not the traditional way of doing it. But why not? I do.
yeah.
And again, that's the coach developer being able, as the coach developer anyway, being able to recognize all, not necessarily all of the affordances, but all of the potential opportunities for people to explore. And if they're not exploring those opportunities, guiding them that way, which you as the coach in theory, if you were coaching someone, would be looking to encourage them to do. And you, as the coach helping the coach developers, if they are still constrained with the way that they're viewing a task, that's where you, as the coach developer of the coaches, go, hey, have you thought about going backwards, forwards, sideways when approaching these things? Well, no, because you wouldn't do that. But why wouldn't you do that? Oh, because it's not effective. Not effective for who? For what? When? Why?
Where? How?
Yeah, the coach is constraining the way that they are viewing a task, which therefore constrains the way that the solution could be deemed, or the behaviors that could be used. And so you now have robots that are doing the same thing over and over, but as I'm sure many of them will agree with, we're not all the same. We are all unique. Every action is unique. And so why are you constraining yourself so much?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Good episode. Thank you.
I it's easy once you've experienced it for so long, and
Yeah,
it becomes a, I mean, it is a philosophy, but it becomes kind of like a mantra.
yeah,
And even though I'm talking using terminology from ecological psychology, those that aren't ecological psychologists and are traditional, like traditionally from cognitive psychology, but more modern psychology, modern cognitive psychology. So whether it's information processing through active inference or through the free energy principle or something similar, they will still have very similar comments regarding the behavior of individuals and the way that they approach looking at things. So if people still want to, in their explanation, use active inference or predictive processing, go for it. Good luck explaining some of the dynamics there, especially if they're not familiar with the conversation like at that depth. But they can still do that. It's how they explain that, which is where they often get tied up because they go back to, oh, but you need a mental model for that. Why? Why do you need a mental model for that? If it's something that you're perceiving throughout your experiences of the world, why do you need to have had past experience of it? You don't. It's dynamic. It's dynamic and fluid. And what happens with your experience isn't there's non-obvious causality. You might not be able to pin it back to some mental model, some one experience, because there's non-obvious causality with the way that humans behave in the world. And you can then extend that to organisms behave in the world. And that's where they go, I guess.
No.
And it all comes from just going deeper into the conversation rather than broad with the behaviors.
Mm.
So, but obviously you can just coach as you would. That might be more useful for what they're expecting. I don't know what they're expecting in the presentation. Are they expecting to be coached? Are they expected to be developed? Like as a
I
coach developer?
They're expected to watch a presentation and be able to take actionable steps, which from an ecological perspective is really freaking hilarious because every single thing I say will be action oriented because that's how I communicate.
That's one of the reasons that I don't do presentations. Or I
Mm.
no, I don't do. I didn't do presentations. Obviously, I'm doing podcasts and the rest of it. But I got very frustrated with this is one of the reasons I didn't become a lecturer, by the way. Because there is this, oh, you need to explain this to that person. Right. So what is the end goal? What is the point of this practice? Well, they need to know this. What does know this mean? Does it mean that they can regurgitate the answer to a question? Is there a specific question? Is it a vague question? Is it a really easy question? Is it a hard question? Is it a question that they need to know the answer to? Like, why am I lecturing these people if these people aren't interested in the end goal, which might be, in my case, if I'm lecturing, to coach children? Or is it to coach adults? Is it to coach children with specific complex needs? Is it to coach adults with specific complex needs? Is it to coach people with football, in trampoline, in handball, in business? Like, what's the context? How am I lecturing these things? Which is why I really struggled with lectures and presentations when they are very broad, and even when they are narrow, they aren't narrow enough because
Mm,
the people in charge of the conference don't understand. I'm not saying they're stupid, I'm saying they don't understand what it is that we understand. And so when they give us constraints, we need to ask them to clarify the constraints further,
mm,
which they often don't know the answer to because they haven't thought about it. They are often relying on us to be the expert, which is great. It's fine. And that is where, when I'm prepping a conversation with the person in charge of the conference, I will almost like um, drill in, what's the word? Uh, question is too tame. But yeah, interrogate. That's the word. I mean, I kind of interrogate the person running and say, okay, can I say this? Can I ask this? Can I point in this direction? Can I question these things? Because that's what I would do. If I'm speaking truly ecologically, I am getting rid of a lot of the social barriers, which I can see you being like, yeah, I don't know how the people in charge would think about me saying these things or me asking those questions, which are, I think, in any communication, barriers that need to be set up front.
mm.
They need to be put
To
up
be
front.
fair, the fact that my entire thing is about unscripting neurodiversity, that like they're really excited that I'm talking about it from that perspective. Because most people don't. They're just like, oh, we're ADHD, we're autistic. Let's try and fix our problems and make ourselves better. What if you just are existing? What if you just exist in your way?
What, I guess, what is the, because when you said with the outcomes, what is your main outcome of the presentation? Because philosophy obviously has a huge part to play in the social constructs that we use and the labels that we
Mm.
use to categorize ourselves.
I think a lot of what it is to, I think it is almost a philosophy, but with practical application, which is very, very difficult to do both at the same time.
I don't think that is difficult at all because everyone will grab an action that they want to explore from a
Mm.
conversation if it's rich enough with dense information for them to explore because we are humans want to learn. We always want to learn. People that say humans don't want to learn don't understand that every experience is a learning experience. They don't grasp that. And so, if you expose something that intrigues someone enough, challenges their expertise in some way, challenges their experience in some way, or their beliefs in some way, they will go and explore, or
So
they will
maybe I
challenge you
approach
back.
it because often I try and pull back on all of the really interesting stuff because it is perceived as overwhelming. But then at the same time, this is a group of people who socially want to learn everything. Like there is a presumed assumption that they want to go deep into really nerdy backgrounds and details of things because they want to
What is
understand.
the where is it it's overwhelming? Where does that come from?
Oh, that's from someone who has read some of my stuff. Like that, it is the phrasing was intellectually dense. I'm like, yeah, try not being intellectually dense with ecological psychology. Like every single word matters.
So I'd be intrigued to know whether that was difficult or not. Maybe that's something you could ask as a teaser thing like at the start. I, I I mean I don't know the group, but saying neurodiverse and it being a summit slash conference for those that are neurodiverse, there are there are certain like types of individuals that I'm imagining.
Yeah,
And I would imagine if you go in saying everyone is a little bit ADHD and everyone is a little bit autistic, that will probably get the hairs up on most of them. And you don't want to like set them off like that. So, well, again, depending on the individual, some individuals go, oh, okay, yeah, bring it on, let's go. Others will be like, nope, shut down. And that's not because they are one or the other, it's just people react to conflict in different ways, like all
yeah,
organisms do.
yeah.
Um, and so I would probably approach the conversation as a, hey, I am this, I do this, I relate to this, I have these problems. I have found these really complex words to be useful. Do you want to know about all these complex words or not? And some people will say yes, some people will say no, but you'll get a rough percentage of where it's at. Um, and then you can start exploring further. Because I
Mm.
think that gives you I would approach it. The term is a needs analysis. You're looking at the needs of the individuals before you do the coaching, but it's a needs analysis at the start of the presentation to put where you are and understanding the needs of the individuals when it comes to their experiences of what it is that you want to be talking about.
That is a shame because it's a pre-recorded presentation done in advance.
Well, yeah, I know. But when you're talking, oh no, because it would be just. So is it just a video that they're going through, not you talking at?
Hmm.
Okay, okay. So what have you got left to do? Just the main presentation.
I just gotta record it. I just have to like do it. And usually I just follow my gut on what it works. Usually works. I have an
It's
idea of
interesting when you say
content.
usually works. Are you using a metric there?
Oh yeah. People like the presentation and find it interesting. That's kind of when I say usually works, like people find it interesting. People are like, this was really good, thank you. This was really helpful. This was really this. This was really that.
I'm curious, have you do you think about doing a presentation and counting how many people it doesn't work for?
Well, I wouldn't know.
No, as in like if you were to do a presentation and it annoy lots of people, would you say that's a successful presentation?
That depends on the context. If I was going out of my way to annoy people to think that would be successful. It'd be a different metric, a different
But
measurement.
that's why I ask. Because lots of people make presentations that please the people. Like when you look at videos online, most videos online they just emphasize the same wheel that everyone's running on. And it's sort of like, yeah, yeah, go whatever the topic is. Uh, and the
I
criticality of the
that
conversation's
that's a
lost.
good point. I think it's often the thing that I really like, the positive feedback, if you want to assign
Yeah.
a binary, which I did, is this made me think.
Okay, that's good.
That is often what I really enjoy when I make people think, which often every single time I do a presentation, people are like, that made me think. I really like how you did this. And often it's like when because a lot of my articles are fairly dense as well of on my Substack is it's they're fairly dense for the audience that usually like consume media online. And so they're like, I love how you went into detail about these things and all of that stuff. So maybe it is the case of me going, what if I took one of my articles and went deeper? Because originally that was the plan. And then I was kind of thinking through and like, well, how can I make this more practical? How can I make this more this and more that? I'm like, what if, what if I took the original article this was based on and recorded that as a presentation?
What does
And
deeper mean?
I love that question and hate that question. Explore it further.
Describe that to me.
No.
This I'm going to record a video in a minute. Well, after this, about challenges inside of skill development. Once people have developed certain complex skills and they are at a point where they are comfortable doing certain things in whatever activity it is. So in trampoline, they can land on their bum, they can land on their tummy, they might be able to land on their back, they can do some shapes in the air. They can do trampoline without needing to try to learn something. Once they're at that stage, adding challenges to it for whatever reason, becomes challenging. And the parents are like, oh, I don't know enough. Well, what would you need to know? What is there? I've written challenges as well, so they can just read those things out. But they go, oh yeah, but I don't know enough. And they ask me, they say, oh, you know more, which is what I think you're suggesting to by go deeper, like knowing more. But what does knowing more mean? I know lots of
Mm,
jargon. I can say lots of big words. Doesn't mean it means anything.
that's
Like
true.
bifurcation, that's really useful.
I don't think I've ever used bifurcation in any of my presentations. The deepest I go is the field of affordances, which I know that's fairly deep end. Like that is probably the deepest I go.
It's interesting you say field of affordance is deep end. I wouldn't say that's deep. I would say that's fairly shallow in ecological psychology because it's new, but I wouldn't say it's deep.
Ah, okay, yeah.
That's how I would describe it. Because I would describe the field of affordances as a newer interpretation of an application for affordances.
Yeah.
And so if if something is more recent, I would describe it as new.
Yeah,
If
that's true.
something requires more experience to understand the jargon being used, then I would describe it as deeper because more experience, understanding, deeper understanding. So when I'm describing what it is, I would say that's deeper than field of
Yeah.
affordances because that's newer.
Yeah.
So for me, in order to explain how bifurcations impact human behavior is going to take far longer than for someone that is brand new. It's going to take far longer than explaining how to apply field of affordances. And so I would see bifurcations as far deeper than field of affordances.
But then that necessarily how useful would talking about useful like there would it would require an awful lot of upfront work to explain bifurcations versus the field of affordances. So maybe it is newer. Maybe when I say deeper, I mean newer.
Hmm.
Maybe there is a newer. and all of it's new. And actually, when I think like field of affordances is fairly grounded, that's a stupid word. Like, but it is fairly like you can attach it to experience.
I think you can attach all of ecological psychology to experiences, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is me perceiving affordances of other individuals, uh, shared affordances. I think it's relatable to the
Yes.
explanations that the people that you're talking to are likely going to likely going to have experienced,
Yeah.
because there are transferable experiences that can go, oh, that makes me think of this thing. That reminds me of that thing. Will it be accurate? Probably not. But it's accurate enough for them to latch on and follow the conversation.
Mm.
There is something that they can use. This is why when I coach beginners in trampoline, I'm defining beginners as people that haven't been coached trampoline by a structured British gymnastics or national governing body coach that uses jargon in trampoline. When I coach beginners, I'm not using seat landing, front landing, Barani. I'm saying, can you land on your bum and get back to your feet? Can you land on your bum and then face the other way before you get to your feet? Can you make different shapes with your body in the air? I'm describing the thing, the challenge that I want them to do through movements because it's more relatable than can you do a swivel hips? A what? Can I do what with my hips? Oh no, you don't have to use your hips at all. Can you land on your bum, twist, face the other way, and land on your bum again? Oh, why didn't you say that? Can you do a cradle or a half turntable? Like, what are you talking about? It's a different language. Yeah, it is. So forget the jargon, describe the thing. Um, and that's what I would do with the terminology with ecological psychology
Mm.
is describing, I'm getting spam with notifications. Go away, people. Um, describing these things. Yeah, I know, poor me. In ways that are relatable, which is what I think the field of affordances could be. My one concern is that they then say, oh, that's like this, and
Mm.
say, oh, field of affordances is like mental models. Or a field of affordances is like personality types. No, no, they're not. That is the one worry.
Mm.
But it's something that everyone will do because that's what people will do. They will use their past experiences to build upon it because that's what learning is. If you're building upon past experiences that don't quite match the meaning behind the terminology that the person is using, then it's going to take longer to understand their meaning. But that's learning. You can't get away from that. How do you speed that up? You can't.
No.
There's no shortcut to learning apart from lots of experiences, which is where you'd want to encourage people to have multiple experiences and really dive into what it is that they want to do.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the question I had about your Substack.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest because I am. I haven't read it. I read a couple of bits of here and there. And I was asking myself when you were talking about Substack, why haven't I read it? Because I'm going to be asking people the same question. Why haven't you read this? Why haven't you read that?
Yeah.
So I was asking myself, why haven't I read the Substack? And the easiest answer, no, the answer that comes to mind first, which I think is the easiest answer, is there's nothing that interests me.
No.
Which I guess, like, before I ask some questions, like, what are your thoughts on that?
That that's good. Because it's not for you. I've not designed it for you. You have experienced, because the entire idea of unscripted neurodiversity is to introduce ecological concepts. It's to bring those to neurodiverse individuals right from the start, from the surface.
So what for audience listeners, I'm pausing there. So what is the difference between introducing ecological psychology in a newsletter and introducing ecological psychology in the literature review part of an academic paper, which I read lots of?
Hmm.
Because the way I think about it is that I am interested in ecological psychology, believe it or not. I read
For
lots of
you, that's a surprise.
I read lots of stuff about it. Some of the stuff is shit, but I still read it. Some of the stuff is extremely boring, but I still read it because it's interesting.
Mm.
It's interesting to read the boring and shit takes because it gets me thinking. And some of the better takes, some of the more uh, evidenced explanations of the topic are also interesting. Like I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading articles, I'm reading blog posts about these things. Granted, much of it is in sport, but I don't think the sport makes that much of an impact on the topic that's being discussed because I don't understand it when they go off in their MMA, boxing, football, cricket, golf, yeah, whatever. Like the words are there, but I'm looking at it from a human behaviors perspective. But your Substack, for whatever reason, doesn't interest me.
That's so interesting.
Now I haven't read it, so maybe the content does interest me. Maybe it's the packaging that doesn't.
Maybe it's the packaging. Yeah.
I can't think of what the packaging is because it's just okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I just scroll past it.
Yeah.
And when you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, but why am I scrolling past it? I shouldn't be. Like in the, for me, like as if you want to call it like an identity, I identify as someone that's interested in ecological psychology. If you're writing about it, why am I not interested about it?
That's
Like
so
I
interesting.
read someone's Substack about tennis, and most of the Substack article is about tennis. There's very little to do with the constraints-led approach, but I read it because the couple of nuggets in there about the constraints-led approach often agree with my understanding of how to apply it in practice. But I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay, I agree with that. I can see how that could work.
Is it too broad?
That I don't know because I haven't read it. That's something you'd need to.
Yeah.
Have you got
No.
an
Yeah.
have you got
That's
an
the point.
example we could discuss? I'm like, why am I
Yeah.
not interested?
I
But
don't
you might be able to
know.
tell I want to be interested, but I'm not. And I'm like,
Yeah, but
why am
you
I
can't
not?
be. That's so fascinating. Well, packaging is the first thing.
Mm,
Like I do. Like that is the because you see the title, a line, and that's it.
mm. So what was the last one? When was the last one? I guess would be the first question.
So the hidden signal your chaos is sending was the last one I wrote.
I remember seeing the title, and I remember not understanding what it was about.
Mm.
I looked at it and thought, I have no idea what you're going to talk about. And because I was in my emails, obviously, I was like, I don't know what that's about, scroll. Like, it was just like an A on my keyboard because I'm hotkeying through.
Yeah. So
Because
it's not.
I remember like three or four emails above was the tennis Substack that I was talking about. And I saw that. I don't remember what it was, like the title word for word, but I remember like the general theme. It was about parents, like helping parents understand why you're standing at the side. Like,
Mm.
I don't remember the title, but that's what immediately when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, I know that pain, that experience, that confusion with parents standing at the side and then not understanding why you're not getting involved in doing stuff. Like that's what I started thinking about when I saw the title. Like, oh yeah, I know that problem. I know that pain. I know that experience. I'm gonna read that. What were you talking about? Where are you going with this? Oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Oh, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that. Moving on. With yours, I was like, I don't know what.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with what if executive dysfunction isn't actually real? That was the first one I wrote.
I don't remember seeing that one, but listening to you speak it, I don't see a problem, an issue, or an experience I can relate to, which would make me
Yeah.
interested.
So that makes a lot of sense because they're all very similar. So I suppose the
I
closest
guess
one.
they're search optimized. Like if I was looking for something, then that
Mm.
would probably
So they're
pique my
much
interest.
more like, yeah, that's true.
As a YouTube creator, I see that as like a search title rather than a browse title.
Yeah,
And I don't know, maybe your Substack is meant for search, but
not really, no.
because when I see that as in my email, I mean I guess you could say your email is like your homepage on YouTube.
Mm.
What am I gonna click on or what am I just gonna archive and then never see again?
Mm.
Because emails aren't going to be pushing YouTube videos in your like YouTube videos is not going to push it in the face. It's just gone. That's it. Finished.
Yeah, so there's not really a hook in. It's just here is the thing that I'm talking about. But I'm also, for some of them, not even saying that.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm also asking this because I'm looking at starting a newsletter, Substack newsletter again, because well, for this exact reason, because there's lots of coach development, coach education that I want to talk about, that I want to discuss, and it's just easier writing. To be completely frank, it's easier
Yeah,
writing,
that's
and
why I did it.
and packaging Substack articles is different from packaging videos.
I need to work. I definitely want to work on that then because I want to package because I think it's missing it. Because if
What's your
you aren't
click-through
doing
rate
it,
like?
not too bad.
20%,
Like,
30%?
let's have a look.
Because I can tell you my
So my
click-through.
so
Yeah,
my open rate, which is the only thing I can track here, is it for the hidden signal shore chaos ascending was 42%.
that's still pretty good though.
Yeah, like my open rates aren't too bad. Engagement is fairly low. Like people don't necessarily engage that much.
What does engagement mean on Substack? Is that
I
comment or
have
like?
no clue. Yeah, so engagement is comments and likes, yes.
Right.
Or clicking a link. So clicking a link, liking or commenting.
Okay. But if you don't have anything in there, either a call to action or a link for them to
Yeah,
click on, then there's going to be no engagement, so you don't know whether they've read it or not.
yeah, that's true. So I need to bring that back in again.
So
So
I would
with
probably, this is me thinking about this as well, add a call to action somewhere in there to like it.
so 16.67% click-through rate on the 6 ways to describe how I fix stuff, which is another one I made. Um,
Right.
yeah.
So the first one, is that the first one you've done in a while?
The hidden signals.
The
That was
one
the
with the
first one I'd
high,
done.
the 40% open rate.
40%. Yeah, that was the first one I'd done. Well, actually, I did two pretty much back to back. I did one on the 22nd and then one on the 26th. And then before it was the 22nd of April. So it's about a month.
So wait, what was the click-through rate of the other one? So you had one was
Which
at
one?
40%. So you just said you put two back to back. One was at
Yeah, so
40%.
the hidden signals your chaos is sending doesn't have a click-through rate because there's nothing that I didn't request engagement. It was more of a just a post. So
Oh.
that's good to know.
Well, I was just thinking if it was the first one in a while,
Mm.
the open rate might have been oh, what are they doing now? What's going on?
And also I hadn't shared this one at all. Like these two that the most recent ones haven't been shared outside of Substack, which which is different.
Uh,
So my first ever one was a 67% open rate. So it's actually slowly dropping. So
okay.
my first Substack, which was what if executive dysfunction isn't actually real, was a 67% open rate. Then the ADHD productivity myth no one talks about was 60, then 57, then 56, then 43, then 43. So it's actually getting worse.
Right. What was your subscription numbers, if you don't mind sharing?
No, man, it's not massive. It is there are like 29 subscribers, so it's just
Was that
it's growing.
129 or 29?
29.
29. Okay. Yeah, so my on the Eastbourne Trampoline newsletter, which is obviously a newsletter, not a Substack, I get about 70% open rate of about 150 people. But it's a newsletter, not a Substack, and it's immediately interesting to those that are reading it because, like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Like, these are the updates. This is what's going on. And so when I look at the bigger newsletters that are out there, like James Clears's newsletter and those sorts of things, um, it's it is more of a newsletter update thing
Yeah.
rather than an article. And when you look at the articles, they are built for search.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, with the Substack, is it worth building it for search articles, or is it worth building it for browse? Like, what's the, or maybe it's a bit
I
of both.
think browse is probably
I don't know what the strategy is with Substack.
no, me neither. For me, I think it's more for browse because I want people who are interested because how many people are going to search ecological dynamics, neurodiversity? That's the thing. So doing it for search doesn't quite make sense.
Hmm.
Whereas doing it for like opens because it's curious and it's interesting. And I realized that most of these aren't very curious. The most curious one is probably the 6 ways to describe how I fix stuff. That's like, oh. But even then, no, that's not curious. That's just like, okay, cool. Why do I care? Yeah, that's interesting. And if I look at it, the most curious, like curiosity driven thing was what if executive dysfunction isn't real? And that had the most open rate, 67%.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting.
That is so fascinating. Cool. I'm gonna go think about that for a while.
Yeah, so we've got a few things to think about now.
Yeah. Yeah, packaging has always been like, I don't want to package things. I just want to produce and everyone just likes my stuff.
Everyone is the same.
Yeah.
Everyone is the same. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add before we close it out?
I am shaking my head. No, no, all good.
Oh, good. Right. Thanks for listening, everyone, and speak to you next week.